Yes! Yes!
I'm vengeance.
Yes, dear God! Welcome everybody, I'm RJ of The Nerdy Brew, and here on this channel we talk TV, movies, and everything in between, all while drinking a cup of coffee. Now if you like one of those things or all of those things, why don't you consider like, subscribing, and hit that notification bell and becoming a fellow Brewster. So today, fellow Brewsters, disclaimer. So me and Couch God shot a good, long, detailed conversational video about the Batman prior to this shooting right here. I went to go edit the video, stuck in the memory card. We knew what we did. We sure that all the technical aspects on our side was perfect and great. And then all of a sudden I went to go edit. None of the footage was there. And we saw the little red dot recorded. It was recorded. We had technical difficulties of the battery died a couple times. We stopped, shot again from where we were at just to go ahead and continue the conversation. And it didn't work out. So this is actually the second video. I talked to him. I told him what was going on. And we both decided the show must go on. So we wanted to have this conversation. We both held our thoughts together until we shot the video yesterday. But everything got lost. So now it's me, and we just wanted to address the elephant in the room, or the giant bat in the room, of discussing the Batman. So this is a spoiler coffee talk of the Batman. Now, I'm not going to do a formal review of the Batman, about the plot, the plot, or then like synopsis and breaking down, certain thoughts. This is more of a conversation, so it's definitely going to be spoilers. And I want to talk about the positives. I want to talk about the negatives. I want to talk about the references I've seen, just my overall thoughts. And it's going to be incorporated with some of what Couch got, his thoughts as well, because he's part of the channel. But yeah, so talking about the Batman. So going into this movie prior, even though you like I used the clip of the reaction of seeing Batman and seeing Vengeance, the positives, the things that I definitely loved about this movie was definitely number one was the performances, the performances from all the leads. And you can see why certain people are A-list actors to put in the time and effort to put in personas to these characters. And talking about the characters, I did love the most. My favorite character throughout the movie was Colin Farrell. He was rare and in between, but when he showed up, I felt that it was definitely transformative in his work. I felt that he was magnetic. I felt that he just really took on this role that was transformative to be totally in depth of the character of the Penguin. Penguin has been a British character from time to time, or he has been, an East Coast gangster, and I love how they put him in as an East Coast gangster. I love that he was real to the code. I love that he just lived that life and he knew that life. And another thing that I loved about him being the Penguin is that it was just another mobster name, and he just happened to be a regular ugly man. Like, it wasn't a birth deformity that he had, a certain, ailments and conditions for his look. He was just a regular big dude who wasn't that attractive, and I like the natural realism to that. Also, I like the chemistry between Zoe Kravitz and Robert Pattinson. You could tell that there was a lot of sexual tension between them, a lot of attraction between them, and I love that they had a different dichotomy in ideology between one another. Especially how they were both great characters to go outside the lines to get their objectives and get where they're done. But I like while she was somebody who was willing to cross that line. Now, I listened to the audio prequel book to the Batman, and in that prequel book, he has a love interest named Dez. And with him having this love interest, Dez, committed a crime. And as his first time as Batman in the book, he arrested her. And I just feel like all the time that he knew that him or Batman and Selina were willing to do the work, it was just in a good place where he was trying to prevent her from catching bodies. She was willing to kill anybody and everybody. And she was like, that's a line that she's willing to cross for her thoughts of justice. And another thing, what I loved about Zoe Kravitz's portrayal is that it was believable. I knew people like her, you know what I'm saying, growing up, that there were people who didn't have the best circumstances, who didn't have the best parents, or a single parent household where they had to get it how they lived. It was just the hand that they was dealt, or the cards that they was dealt in their hands, and they just had to manage what they had and what they could do. So I definitely appreciated that she was a product of her environment, where she did not have this high imagination of right and wrong. She just knew how life was. So I appreciated her from that. I felt like Andy Serkis is always great. I hate that, some of his scenes, like especially when he was Claw, and I felt like with Claw inside the MCU and here is Alfred, they hire him, he's always fantastic, he's always bringing his A game, but then they just want to take him out very quickly when I could use more of him throughout the movie, because I just like his dynamic and what he's portraying as his characters. I love Caesar from Planet of the Apes movies, but when he is coming to show his face and being an actor in himself, I just enjoy that portrayal of him being an actor. Also, I love the dynamic duo, and I'm not talking about Robin because he doesn't make it in this movie, but Batman and Jim Gordon. And what I liked about Jim Gordon, I felt that Jim Gordon was the Jim Gordon of the Batman animated series. Throughout the comics or recently, or even in the Batmans from the 90s, what do we call them? What do we call those Batman movies from the 90s? Do we just call them Batman movies from the 90s? Because it started off with Tim Burton and then it went to Joel Schumacher, and it's supposed to be the same continuity, but I don't know if it's got an overall name, but whatever. But that dude, that Jim Gordon, was just a supporting character that was more of a plot piece of knowing that he was in the lexicon for Batman. There was this weathered veteran cop of Gary Oldman in the Dark Knight trilogy, and also in Year One, the animated movie, but also in the comic. He's this veteran who's tired of corruption, but he's willing to, he's just a weathered dude, so he's very comfortable with Batman. And in this movie, I just felt like he was very sincere at being the commissioner. I felt that he was very sincere. I felt that he was very loyal, and I felt that he was very optimistic, knowing that the world was corrupt, but he wanted to do his part to make a change in it. And he said, throughout the movie, or, in the movie, he says to Batman, the only person he trusts is him. And they already have their relationship together. And, he starts off as lieutenant. So we'll see, the progression going further. Also, what I liked about the movie was the score. I felt like the score of the movie, when Batman was always introduced, or when they set the tension for the scene, I felt like the music was incorporated real well, along with moving the story along and setting the atmosphere. And I just love the Batman theme. I also love the car chase between Penguin and Batman, and he get to use his Batmobile.
Psycho! I got
you! In the prequel book, he's tinkering with his car a lot. He just wants it to be the most effective, the most strongest. So when he ever needs to make it onto those streets, his car will be well equipped. So throughout the book, he's tinkering with it. So I'm glad that we got to see it in its full glory in this. I think, it's a very good car chase scene, and it was very intense, and it was suspenseful as well. And it was probably one of my favorite points in there. I like the cinematography in the movie. I liked how in the cinematography of the movie, the cameraman, the cinematographer, I don't got his name, but he got good color palettes, the dark reds, sunrise, getting these gritty and dark colors, setting the tone of making it a dreary and gothic place inside of Gotham. So I definitely appreciated that. And also Robert Pattinson as Batman. He, with him being Batman, I definitely noticed how it was more like he was Batman all the time. Inside the costume and outside the costume, he was always Batman. Where he didn't know how to have the duality just as yet of Bruce Wayne. And he was just more of a recluse, and Batman was his full-time persona. So I like that, and especially his performance as Batman. I felt like it was a great middle ground where it was between Michael Keaton's Batman and Christian Bale's Batman, where there wasn't a voice modulator and he wasn't being over exaggerated. I'm not wearing hockey pads. You know what I mean? So we didn't have to hear him, get throat cancer based off of that. And I felt like it was just very, had a lot of gravity to his performance as Batman. Another thing that I did like was the choreography. I felt like this was the best choreography done in a Batman movie. There was, in the Tim Burton ones, it was definitely of its time, one villain at a time, kind of, how action movies were, where they would, do a kick and a punch and one person would come, at you and they would, get rid of that person. But that's not like what real fights are. So that's what was the Tim Burton ones. But there was a lot of Batman, kung fu fighting, punching that he did. But it was very quick when he did that in those movies. But there was the ones in the Dark Knight, I did not like any of that action. I know that Christopher Nolan was trying to set Batman as a force of nature. For us as the audience, we can't see what's going on, so it's supposed to be like a very nerve-wracking, anxiety-filled event. But what they did here, they showed the brutality, they showed the choreography, they showed the viciousness and the anger portrayed in the violence of Batman. And I like that a lot. I also like that Batman was not clean, swift. There's a scene where he escapes out of the police department and he has a suit, a base jump suit. And it's in his costume. It's tied along with the cape, and he doesn't stick the landing. And he walks. And he hurts himself from that. So I like that he's not as polished to know what's going on. to be like, man, I need to stick the landing. You know what I mean? He didn't have a superhero landing like Christian Bale did, you know? This is my Dadalorian cup. Drinking some coffee. As I got through it, all the positives, there was a lot that I liked. But getting into the negatives, I am a naysayer. And I just had this certain experience with the movie when I saw it. And for me, you know, you could tell the influences that it had was definitely Seven and Saw and a hint of Taxi Driver. And it is nothing wrong with paying homage to those movies, or even using them as a foundation with a twist, and the twist was adding Batman inside of Gotham. But for me, I seen Seven, I seen Zodiac, I seen Taxi Driver, and I feel like those are far better, superior movies than what we got inside of this movie. When it comes to taking the references with the Zodiac movie, which was more of a murder mystery, but when the murders happened inside that movie, they were they're very terrifying, and that's based off of a real person. A real person was out here killing, and you know, the Riddler had his mask like the Zodiac killer, and also was using codes to decipher like the Zodiac killer. I just felt, for me, that was also, I didn't like that very much. As I said, he did the traps just like Seven, and I just wanted to tell y'all, there's this documentary on Netflix called Evil Genius, and it's about a woman who staged a bank robbery, and she tied a bomb around a man's neck for a robbery. And I just really felt, you know, that was the inspiration for that when it comes to the DA, and he had that happen to him. That was another thing that was totally, you know, based off of, there was an influence to incorporate it inside this movie. Speaking about negatives, I also felt like the movie was overly long. I do feel like, you know, the movie, everything was necessary, but everybody is praising this movie because they're like, oh, it's a film noir, it's a detective movie, it's a perfect Batman movie. And I disagree. I feel like the perfect Batman movie is Batman Begins is the perfect Batman movie. Just the portrayal of Christian Bale doing a duality between Bruce Wayne and Batman, knowing that Bruce Wayne is the mask, loved it. My favorite scene in that movie is the scene where he's in Scarecrow's apartment. And why I love that scene so much is, one, you see Batman moving throughout the shadows as he does, and he's in this random person's apartment, just to show that he has his ninja skills. Loved it. And then he gets burned by Scarecrow, and he jumps out the window, gassed and burned. And what I loved about that was, even though he is this world's greatest detective and he's doing his sleuth work, about to, you know, do this investigation and interrogate this person, it's his vulnerability as a man where he got hurt and he had to recover. The Robert Pattinson Batman definitely stayed focused and moving, and he was taking gunfire all the time. You know, even the Christian Bale Batman, he was like, man, there was dogs. I need something against dogs. And it was like this particular Batman was all the way, you know, laced up and ready for war already. But what makes Batman such a good character is that he shows the persistence of being human, and it is okay to be human, to be focused and dedicated on something. For him, it's fighting crime, you know what I mean? But this one was just totally enthralled and damn near impervious to everything. So that that made it more comic booky to me than gritty, which the movie was actually going for. And though that's pretty much my negatives, and with those negatives, it made me take away how high regard that I would have for this movie, because I was definitely anticipating it. But as I said prior, because I don't want y'all to misconstrue what I'm saying, those negatives were negatives to me that took me out the movie. And another thing for a negative too is that I predicted early on who the rat was. There was the case of Whitey Bulger, and Whitey Bulger, top tier, he was this top tier gangster in Boston who made a FBI deal. And what was a good reference would be The Departed of Frank Costello, played by Jack Nicholson. Was, yes, his criminality can go on and keep going, and it was closing cases for law enforcement, but everybody else was getting money off of those situations. Then they had, the government is going to be the government, and they ended up turning on him for him to be on the run. But and it just made sense in this movie that Falcone was the only one to benefit at the highest level. And yeah, I didn't like that I was able to predict that so early about him being the rat. But I enjoyed going on the investigation with Batman, but I'm somebody who's not Batman, and I was able to figure it out before the reveal inside the movie. So that was a negative for me as well. And as I said, I don't want the negatives to misconstrue what I think about the movie, but the movie had negatives for me where I don't think it was perfect, and I don't want to compare and take the movie as it is. There's so much other content that I automatically ended up comparing. But the references that I did see in the movie, there was the reference to Edward Elliot, I think that was his name, which was the reporter. And I don't know if Edward Elliot would be the progenitor or the patriarch of the Elliot family, and maybe that could tie into Thomas Elliot, who's the villain Hush, and he would probably, be built up as the next villain, or a reason to have hate towards the storylines that I saw that they used to make this movie. Was the storylines of No Man's Land, 0 Year, and The Long Halloween, and maybe a little bit of Batman Earth 1. Those are the ones that I saw, and the references that I got from that is in Batman 0 Year is actually one of my favorite Batman stories too. Is the Riddler was his first big major villain, and he disrupts the city, and the power goes out, and the city ends up becoming like a post-apocalyptic I Am Legend kind of environment. And Batman is stopping crime, and he's trying to get the power back on, and the Riddler is kind of being victorious, and I'll speak about that too. And then there also was No Man's Land, I think in the early 2000s, and the city gets cut off, and the bridges are broken, and it's kind of like in The Dark Knight Rises when that happens. So Batman goes to the different boroughs, throughout Gotham, trying to save the day. And I think that's where Cassandra Cain was introduced in that issue as well. Alfred teaching Bruce Wayne how to fight. That's in Earth 1 for him being a spy or a military man from back in the day. I like that reference from Earth 1. And with The Long Halloween, there was two that I noticed, is that Falcone got scratched by Selina. That happened in that with The Long Halloween. And the first murder of the mayor happened on Halloween. So they didn't keep the theme of Halloween, or holiday killings, going on for a year, but it started off with that. So that's something that I paid attention to. Another reference that I got from the movie is that they subverted expectations, and they did something a little different, where that and I only seen this one other time, and in the Telltale games, they had Thomas Wayne be corrupted in his connection with Falcone. I personally don't remember the connection, but I knew it was some way that they were funneling money laundering, and Thomas Wayne had a hand in that, with that resulted in their relationship together. So that was in the Telltale games. Telltale, swing. But when they did that in this movie, and it wasn't more of him being corrupted, it was more of him being a mistake as a man, not having the best judgment, and feeling the pressure when it comes to his family. But they still had that connection of him being tied with Falcone, and with him being tied with Falcone, it put Thomas in a place. Well, it put Thomas in a place. I noticed that my hand started moving like a president. So I decided to start saying, if the dress is a mess, don't stress. Yeah. Back to the video. But the references between Thomas Wayne and Falcone, I've only seen it in the Telltale continuity. But it was nice to see that Falcone put it in a place where he had leverage over Thomas Wayne, where it comes to be a problem. And it taints the legacy of the Waynes, where Batman wants to correct it, and it adds some realism to the fact that not everybody has a squeaky clean past, even though they want to rectify and not live in that moment. And I appreciated that there was a Joker reference. I didn't talk about that for none of that. When the Riddler was in the Arkham Mental Hospital, I don't know, I forgot what they called it, but it wasn't Arkham Asylum. There was, he started talking with this mysterious figure, saying that he was a joke, he was a clown, everything is funny. And when I saw that, and not just only his performance, but we only see partially his face, and we see his face is scarred. And when I saw that, it definitely made me think of who he was in the New 52. And him being in the New 52, he scarred up his face. He's actually ripped his face off and then stapled it back on before he got his face in, what was it, Deaxium? It was like the Lazarus Pit juice, and his face got restored. But yeah, for a long time he was walking around with his face cut up and disfigured, and it wasn't just the bad chemicals that made him who he was. So I don't know if that's what they were going for in this movie, but that's the one thing that I referenced with his face being so scarred up, that I just thought, oh, that's the New 52 version of the Joker. But all the Easter eggs and other stuff, because mind you, me and Jamal didn't talk to each other, and we didn't watch anything to have our thoughts skewed or to lean any sort of way. We just wanted to project our own thoughts, and also it was overly long for the both of us. But I'm gonna wrap that up. If y'all was able to listen to me spill about the things that I saw and whatnot. But as I said, I love the performances from everyone. I love the cinematography. I love the color palette. I love the musical score. Those are the things that I enjoyed highly. The performances from everybody. Seeing what's next throughout the movie, it seems like we ended off on Batman being turning more into a hero, more instead of just an agent of vengeance. And that's one thing that is very high regard in Batman. Not only is that he's trying to readjust crime, even though there's a lot of psychological issues that he doesn't, take a part in, that he needs some help. He's always constantly fighting crime, but with him fighting crime, he will definitely save people out of his own will. And I like at the end of the movie, he got to that place. I did enjoy the final fight with against the Riddler's followers. I think that was just well done, well lit, well choreographed. I like how Batman ended up using his smoke pellets. That was a total Batman thing to do. I did like the technology. I love the chemistry and relationship that he had with Selina in that movie. Oh, they did mention Bloodhaven. And for those who don't know, Bloodhaven is the city where Nightwing, who was the first Robin, operates out of when he decides to leave Batman and fight crime on his own. So that was a nice reference that, that city exists. In the prequel comic, Lex Luthor exists. LexCorp exists, so maybe Superman could show up with Robert Pattinson, or this is a variation throughout the multiverse. Who knows? But that was cool. But with all that being said, I talked for a whole half hour, so thank you for sitting and having some coffee with me. But with that being said, I'll give this Nerdy Brew grade of a 6.8. The negatives were the negatives for me. I didn't love it. I just felt like the Dark Knight trilogy did it better. I know this is one movie, but I felt like Batman Begins, don't want to compare, but Batman Begins did Batman better to me. The movie was good. And I wasn't expecting Batman to beat up people for 3 hours, but I'm also part of the general audience where I would like a stronger and smoother paced film. If it was film noir, it'd be film noir, but we had the detective movie of Batman, and I felt like the Nolan trilogy did it better. We didn't really get it with Tim Burton or the Joel Schumacher movies. There were things that were happening, but Batman as a detective, that wasn't really one of the things. But those are my thoughts. Yep, a 6.8. Couch God agrees. It's a 6.8 as well. Because we didn't overly love this movie. And the thing for Couch God, that a lot of Batman things wasn't introduced for him. He wanted to see the duality of Bruce Wayne in Batman. He didn't like Bruce Wayne's hair. He thought that Bruce Wayne's hair was unkept. He just was looking like he didn't have billions of dollars or the prince of the city. But even though I understand that they brought that out through the movie, that took Couch God back because Couch God doesn't read the comics, and he would have liked to seen the mask and the portrayal of Bruce Wayne. I agree. One band, one sound. And with all that being said, I'd love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Even if they're different, tell me how much you love this movie. Tell me how much you hate this movie. So excited to hear from you. Thank you for the new Brewsters being here. We appreciate you so much. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Be sure that you subscribe. Hit that notification bell because a lot of new content is coming on the way. And more announcements. So I'm gonna bring this video to an end, and I want you to be you, do you, see the bigger picture. Have a fantastic day because you deserve it. This is that channel. Peace.